Good afternoon. I'm Marianna Langston, a nutrition educator with Southern University Ag Center's nutrition programs, serving Morehouse Parish. And today's topic is about navigating the grocery store. All right, so that navigating the grocery store, there could be a lot of obstacles when we get there. One of the things a lot of times we hear is that it can just be overwhelming. There's a lot of choices down every aisle, and deciding between what's healthy and what's not can add to that challenge. So, oftentimes you're going to hear things like shop only the outside aisles of the store or not go to certain sections. And you can actually find healthy food choices down in every section and every aisle and possibly save some time and money as well. So, one helpful way to decide on what's going to be best as far as choices is to use the My Plate as a guide. So I'm going to kind of talk about each one of the food groups as we go through the sections of the grocery store, and also give you some tips on ways to find the most for your money. All right, so those sections of the grocery store, we all see the produce department as soon as we walk in. Most times, depending on whether you go to your left or your right, you may enter into the seafood department or maybe into the deli. Bakery is one. Then you have your frozen section as well as those interior aisles. So we'll kind of go through each one of those and talk about good finds on each one. All right, so fresh fruits and vegetables. So finding those is the best way to start your shopping trip because you get to see all sorts of colors and different smells. Check for ones that are in season, whether it be the fresh fruits or the fresh vegetables, because most likely you're going to be able to find those on sale, and they're also going to be at their peak flavor when they are in season. Now, make sure you're shopping and eating the rainbow, and aim for a variety of types and colors when you select those fruits and veggies. Dried fruits are a great thing to have on hand to use as a snack, or maybe you want something a little sweet. Well, they have the natural sugars in them, and that might just keep you from reaching for that cookie or a piece of candy. Look for things like dried vegetables in that produce section. Dehydrated okra makes a great topping for your salads instead of using croutons. And sometimes those are in your produce section, or perhaps there's a section right next to the produce section that you're going to be able to find those. Avoid those pre-prepared salads and dips. A lot of times they have a lot of added sodiums, but if you do need to select one, be sure to check for the items on the food label and find the ones that are the lowest in the sodiums and sugars. And if you can, buy extra and put them in the freezer or can them for later use in the year. All right, so our meat and seafood department. So when you start choosing items here, make sure to try to choose lean meats. Look for the ones that have less visible fat. And when selecting your ground meat, choose the ones that have a lower amount of, you can actually look and see which ones have less fat, or you might purchase them such as 93-7 or 90-10. Sometimes you see it as 80-20 or 85-15. Look for ones that have the lower amounts of the fat. Avoid those pre-seasoned meats because a lot of times you're not sure. It may just say seasoned salt or seasoning blend. So you're not going to be sure exactly how much sodium might have been in that mix. Or depending on the type of mix, it may also have some added sugars. Plus, it's going to cost you more per pound. All right, our deli section. So use caution when selecting items. Not saying that there aren't some good choices, just be careful and read those facts labels. Choose items that are going to have lower fats, lower sodium, and lower sugars. This is things where, you're going to find your sandwich meat or some of your block cheeses. Just be wise when looking at those and pick the ones that have the lower amounts. All right, our bakery section. Now that can be a very difficult section to navigate because there are so many tempting choices. And depending on whether they are right at the front, sometimes that's the first thing we smell when we go in. So make sure to look for those whole grain products and then look for items that are lower in your sugars, your sodiums, and your fats. You can find healthy selections in there. You just have to be a wise shopper. Frozen food section. There's a lot of choices in the frozen food section. It probably has one of the wider varieties along with the canned section. So there are some healthy food choices in that section. And some of those are great to have on hand if you need to make a quick dinner. Now, frozen fruits are a very economical way to keep fruits on hand, especially if you like things such as maybe smoothies or adding fruit to, like if you're making pancakes. So with the frozen fruits, you're able to keep them in the freezer longer. And then you have them ready and available, and you don't have to run to the store to pick those up. Another thing with frozen fruits is, say you're going to make a smoothie and you only need a couple of pieces of that frozen fruit that's in there. Well, that's going to keep you from having to come up with ways, if you open canned fruit, of using up the rest of that can. But one tip with the frozen fruit is, if you're making a smoothie, you can use that frozen fruit to substitute for the ice that's in there. So frozen vegetables, those are also a great item that you can find there that's going to help, stay within your budget, but be sure to look for the ones that are packaged without sauces and no butter. Buying those plain vegetables is going to give you a lot more ways to use them in different meals. Season them yourself if you're just cooking just the vegetable. And by seasoning yourself and avoiding the ones that have the sauces and butter, you're going to be able to keep those extra calories out. So when choosing your frozen dairy items, there are a lot of choices in there. Look for items that have your lower amounts of sugars and lower amounts of fats. Frozen dairy is a great way to have a sweet treat, but just be sure to watch for those sugars and fats. All right, frozen meats and seafood. We can find those often in the frozen food section. And they're great options to have on hand for planning meals. But make sure to buy the plain meat and seafood items. Check that label and make sure that you don't have added seasonings, sauces, and butters in there. And avoid those prepared items that are often high in fat, sugars, and sodiums. Be careful when selecting items like your frozen pizzas, frozen dinners, and snacks. Those tend to have a lot more of your added fats and sodiums. Now, one quick tip is that March is actually National Frozen Food Month. So watch for those specials and stock up on those frozen items to have on hand for making quick and easy meals when you're in a hurry. All right, your dairy section. You're going to have things like your milk and your cheese, and those tend to be staples on everyone's list. Now, when purchasing milk, keep in mind that the lower fat varieties have the same amount of calcium without having all the extra fat and calories. But watch out for those added sugars in the flavored milks. Now, when purchasing your cheese, look for labels that specify that it's made with low fat or skim milk, and be sure to check for the amount of sodium in the cheese. That can vary greatly depending on the type of cheese that it is, as well as the manufacturer. So when purchasing other dairy items like your yogurt, look for no added sugars, or be sure to watch and pick the variety that has the lower amount of sugars in it. All right, so sometimes we don't think about there are a lot of choices there. Just be a wise consumer and check those dates as well. If you know you're not going to be able to consume that product before the expiration date, look for one that has a further date. All right, your interior aisles. There are lots and lots of choices when you look at those inside aisles. All right, so canned fruits and 100% fruit juice. When looking at your canned fruits, make sure that you select items that are packaged in 100% fruit juice or have no added sugars. With your fruit juice, make sure that it says that it's 100% fruit juice. Canned vegetables, look for canned vegetables that are labeled low sodium or no salt added. You can always add your seasoning once you prepare those. All right, your vegetable juice, make sure you're choosing that 100% vegetable juice. All right, a lot of times we forget that there are some great protein options, and that's interior aisles. So things like your dried and canned beans and lentils. They're an excellent choice of protein, and they're also very wallet friendly. They can be used in a variety of dishes, and canned beans, as well as those dried ones, can help stretch dishes that you may not want to use as much meat in. With the canned beans, make sure to look for the low sodium or rinse them before you use them. Another thing we often forget when we're looking at those are your things like canned tuna or salmon. Those are shelf stable and are an excellent source of protein and can be paired with other things to make complete meals. Just be sure to check those labels and watch for the flavored varieties, as they may have a lot of added in sodium. All right, so nuts and seeds, those are a protein rich option, and they can be used as part of a meal, topping for a salad, or even as part of your snack. Just be sure to check the date on those and get the one that has the farthest date. If you find a large package, you can store those in the freezer so that they have a longer shelf life. All right, dairy foods. A lot of times we don't think about dairy items being on those interior aisles. So keep an eye out for things like evaporated skim milk and powdered milk. Those are great when you're making cream-based soups or a soup that may call for heavy cream. All right, so your grain foods. A lot of places on those inner aisles have some great choices for whole grains. Look for things such as whole grain pastas, oats, and brown rice, as well as your whole grain breakfast cereals. Just make sure to check the label and select the one that has the ingredient listed as a whole grain. All right, a couple of other things to keep in mind is make a list. Having that list will help you stay in that budget. Know the tactics of the grocery store. So with that, it kind of goes along with don't go shopping when you're hungry. Make sure you have eaten a snack or a meal before you go, because one of those tactics that the grocery stores use is they may put those fresh baked goods or maybe that fresh rotisserie chicken right near the entrance, and that helps draw you to those areas, and you may not be able to stick to your list. Skip the prepared foods. Those tend to be a lot more expensive and have added in sodium, sugars, and fats that you may be trying to avoid. So avoid that soda aisle. Avoiding the soda aisle will help keep the temptation away. So not purchasing anything from there is going to help you save your money. Plus, if you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar, staying away from that soda aisle will make that easier. All right, pass by that cookie and chip aisle. Avoid those because these items are typically made with highly processed refined grains and have high amounts of trans fats and added sugars. All right, so quick review. Make a list. Look for healthy options in every section. Avoid the aisles that you know have products that are loaded with the added sodium and sugars and also those fats. All right, so now after learning more about how to navigate your grocery store, I challenge you to look for at least one healthy option in every section of your store and to avoid those aisles that have the items that are high in sodium and sugars and fats. I want to thank you for joining us today and also remind everyone that March is National Nutrition Month and to be on the lookout for the challenges that we have on our social media pages. And also, please remember to take one of our surveys. And again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully you've learned a few things to help you navigate your grocery store trip. We also have some resources to help you make those shopping trips and plan better.